Hi, I'm Hazel Lugay. Today, I will be reporting on the three-step method in editing and the aspects of a copy as part of Module 4, Editing Communication Materials. To give you an overview of my report, I will start by reviewing the definition of editing. Next, I will discuss the three-step method in copy editing and the various aspects of a copy. I will also suggest some popular editing tools that can help ease your writing load. Then I will end my report with some questions to facilitate the discussion of these topics. As we discuss, please keep the following in mind. How can knowing the three-step method in copy editing help writers in coming up with messages that best communicate their ideas? And how can knowing the aspects of a copy tailor-fit development communication messages of writers to connect with and persuade their audience and achieve specific, well-defined objectives? Knowing these, we will be able to explain the three stages in copy editing, be able to apply them to ensure the writer's ideas are presented clearly to the readers, and effectively communicate its message, and familiarize writers with the different aspects of a copy and be able to apply this in their writing. Editing is the process that involves reviewing, organizing, correcting grammar and spelling, and formatting a piece of content and getting it ready for publication. In an ideal world, editing is actually done by several people. The structural editor is the one who makes decisions about the piece of writing's big picture. The copy editor, who organizes the narrative, as well as looking for grammatical or punctuation errors, and the proofreader, the one who tidies up one's work in one neat package by fixing errors that have previously been overlooked. Sometimes, we do not have the luxury of all three editors to look at our work. In this video, I will discuss how you can edit your own work using the three-step method in copy editing. The first method is known as substantive, developmental, or structural editing. Structural editing shows you the big picture. When doing this, ask yourself, what is the point? The editor gets into the article's soul and looks for aspects of a copy like tone, newsworthiness, possible violations of law, policy, ethics, etc., which we will discuss in full detail later on. In doing structural editing, ask yourself the following questions. Is my work relevant? Is it original? Is it factual? Am I writing to the right audience? And is it the appropriate length? Here are some tips in structural editing. Number 1, step back and distance yourself from your work. The more you read and reread your work, the more you become familiar with it, and it becomes difficult to spot any errors. Step back and come back to it after a few days and see it with fresh eyes. Number 2, don't be afraid to cut large chunks. The first draft is your word or ideas dump. For sure, it will be verbose and full of clutter and ego. Read through it and don't be afraid to cut large chunks of your work if you think that it is not working. Third, don't be afraid to restructure. Sometimes, your best work doesn't always go according to plan. Some elements work better in a different order, so don't be afraid to move things around. Kurt Vonnegut, an American author, sums up these tips into one piece of advice. Your eloquence should be the servant of the ideas in your head. Your rule might be this: if a sentence, no matter how excellent, does not illuminate your subject in some new and usual way, scratch it out. The second method in copy editing is known as copy editing or line editing. Here, the editor checks if the copy has been organized, Check for tone or language and flow of ideas. Grammar, spelling, and punctuations are also checked in this editing stage. In doing copy editing, ask yourself the following questions. Is there only one main point in the paragraph? Can I identify the central idea of the paragraph? Are there any extra sentences that seem to be irrelevant to the main point? Are there grammatical, spelling, and punctuation errors? Here are some tips in copy editing. Say what you mean. Some writers have a tendency to be verbose. If this is you, choose your words well. Use strong verbs and precise words that say exactly what you mean. Number 2, fix common errors in writing. Check for common writing mistakes such as unclear pronouns, subject-verb agreement, run-on sentences, wrong words, wordiness, capitalization errors, spelling errors, sentence fragments, misplaced apostrophes, passive voice, punctuations, and hyphens, to name a few. William Zinsser, a writer, editor, and literary critic, notes, the secret of good writing is to strip every sentence to its cleanest components. Every word that serves no function, every long word that could be a short word, every adverb that carries the same meaning that's already in the verb, every passive construction that leaves the reader unsure of who is doing what. These are the 1,001 adulterants that weaken the strength of a sentence. And the third method in copy editing is the final copy editing, or proofreading. Proofreading is to read and mark corrections. This is where you do the polishing, the nitpicking, and really concentrating on the small stuff. Here, you take a closer look at grammar, punctuations, assessing if it needs to be cut down, rearranging paragraphs, organization, writing headline, and confirm citations, and check for errors that can sabotage what should have been a good piece of writing. In doing proofreading, ask yourself the following questions. Did I make any spelling mistakes? Did I use the correct punctuation marks? Did I address all the assigned requirements? Am I using the correct tense? Are there run-on sentences? Do I constantly repeat the same word? Have I referenced my sources? Does each fact have an in-text citation? Here are some tips in proofreading. First, read your copy out loud. By reading your work out loud, you make use of 2 senses, seeing and hearing. This increases your chances of catching errors. What one sense misses, the other may pick up. Pay attention to the sound of words, phrases, and sentences. If you have read your work several times and still have difficulty understanding it, chances are your readers will be the same. Go back to the drawing board and rework it. Next, read one line at a time using a cover to hide the rest of the page. This hack helps provide the focus you need to check your sentence structure and individual word usage, like subject-verb agreements and identifying homonyms like there and there. Some experts recommend reading your work backward through a sentence so you can easily spot misspelled words. Third, work in short bursts. Proofreading can be tedious work, so work on it for short periods of time. If you find your eyes glazing over, chances are you're missing what should have been common errors in your work. Also, at this stage, you're checking for errors in grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Try to resist reworking sentences that don't have anything wrong with them. Fourth, read on paper or a different device. For some, like me, it is easier to edit when the article is printed on paper rather than working on a digital device. And the last one, get a beta reader. A beta reader is basically a test reader. They approach your work with fresh eyes. They are like a casual reader and acts as the author's test market. If you can, get one. Sometimes having fresh eyes to look at your work helps in spotting errors that you would commonly miss. Having said all that, there's always one error that gets away. Committing errors is inevitable, but that shouldn't stop you from writing and publishing your work. Editing is like sculpting. You chip away the stone to reveal the masterpiece within. American author and journalist Neil Strauss aptly describes the process of editing as: the first draft is for you, the second for the reader. The third draft, and a lot of people don't do this, is for the hater.